Hello and welcome to Top Tips for Success at your next interview. So I'm going to be talking about that today. My name is Janine Esbrand, and for those of you that don't know me, and I am a life and career coach at Lightbox Coaching, and I help women who want to build a career that they love whilst raising a family. And I'm here today to talk to you about interviews because it's the beginning of 2018, and now is the time when a lot of people think about making changes and think about making shifts, and maybe that means making a change in your work situation, or maybe that means you're going back to work after maternity leave, or you're making some kind of change, and having some interview tips would be useful for you. So that's what I'm going to dive in today. Before I do so, it would be great for you to type in the comments where you're joining from. I'd love to know, and also just type yes if you are preparing for an upcoming interview, so that I know that too. Okay, so let's dive in. So top tips, I'm going to give you 3 tips today, not going to be long. The first one that I want to share with you is to create your own agenda. So when you're invited for an interview, you want the job, you're looking at the company, you'd love to work for them, it's easy to fall into a way of thinking where you're thinking about you trying to impress them. And that is great, you are trying to impress them, but you're also wanting to be able to take a bit of control, and you want to be able to demonstrate that you have a lot to offer, and you want them to be impressed by you. You want them to be impressed by who you are as a person and your background. And so it's a good idea to really think about, what is it that I want to tell them? Not what do they want to know, what do you want to tell them? So spend some time just thinking about the job spec, thinking about the job that you will be doing, and thinking about all the experience that you have and all that you have to share and all that you've done before, and then think about what would be important for them to know. And have your agenda, have some bullet points of the things that you want to make sure that you communicate with them by the end of the interview. And the reason why this is good is that if they don't ask you a question that leads to a specific answer that you would like to give, you can find a way to weave it into your answers, or you can raise it at the end if they ask you, is there anything else you'd like to add? So just know what your agenda is, know what it is you want them to know by the time you leave the interview, and then you can find a way to make sure that that gets communicated during the interview. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to look at commonly asked questions in your industry and generally in terms of interviews, and take some time to prepare an outline or prepare fully the answer to those questions. So there are a range of interview questions that can be asked of you. Yes, there can be some curveballs, there could be things that you've never been asked before, but there are a core group of questions that are commonly asked, or there's a variation on those questions that will be asked. So if you think about what your answer is to those questions, when they come up, you're going to be able to deliver a well thought out answer, an answer that really shows you in the best light. You're going to be able to give examples that would be a lot better than if you were thinking of an example on the spot. So take some time to think about those commonly asked questions and prepare your answers to those questions. So write them out, think about them, play around with different examples. When you actually say them out, they might sound not as good as you think in your head. So take some time to think about, okay, if I'm asked this question, what is my response going to be? So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 leads on from tip number 2, and it is to practice. Now that might sound really simple, but not everybody does it. So when I say practice, I mean actually sit down and practice saying the answers to potential questions. So you can either do that with a friend, a family member. You can get them to ask you questions and then you can respond to those questions. You can record yourself on video and then you can look back and critique yourself and say, actually, I could have explained that a little bit better, or I could have said that in a different way. Or you can get somebody to do a mock interview with you. You can hire someone professionally, a coach, or somebody who could help you with your interviewing preparation. But the point is to practice, so that when you get into the interview and you sit down in that chair for the first time, you're not going to be just thinking, oh, okay, what am I going to say if they ask me this? What am I going to say? And start really allowing your nerves to take over, because you've practiced so many times and you feel comfortable with your answers and you feel comfortable with how you're going to respond. Even if it's not something that you've prepared before, when they ask you the question, you're still going to feel more relaxed than if you hadn't practiced. So practice as much as you can before you actually go to the interview is the 3rd tip. So just to recap, I'm just giving you 3 today. Just to recap, the first one is for you to have your own agenda, know what it is you want to communicate with them to show them that you're a good fit for the role. Number 2 is for you to look at commonly asked questions and craft out your response to those questions. Think about really interesting examples that you could draw on in terms of your experience, things that are going to make the interviewer say, oh, that's interesting. You want to stand out and you want to leave a lasting impression. So try and think of examples that are a little bit out of the box when you're dealing with competency-based questions. And the third one is to practice. So make sure you're practicing before you head into the interview so that you can feel as calm and confident as possible. So those are my 3 tips for you today. If you think any of those tips would be useful for anybody else, please share it with your friends, share it with your network so that they know. And I want to just tell you about a workshop that I'm going to be running in a few weeks' time. If you are preparing for an interview, you've got one coming up and you'd like a little bit more support, I'm going to be running a masterclass where I'm going to dive deeper into different strategies that you can take when you're preparing for interview, and then what you should be doing when you're actually at interview, and then what you should be doing to follow up to really lead to success and hopefully an offer at the end of the interview process. And then there will also be a live Q&A section so that you can ask any specific questions that you have. So if that's something that you're interested in, or you would be interested in, then do in the comments below just type interested and I will send you a message to follow up with more details. Alright, so that's all from me. I will be back next Thursday sharing some more tips with you, so I hope to see you then. Bye!